Hey guys, so for my last review, I said that this season feels unneeded to be made since I thought the season 2 ending was perfect. And while I slightly stand by that, that doesn't mean this season wasn't great. I thought this season was fantastic, especially with inventive stories, new characters to love, and an overall bigger scale this season has, with Russians invading Hawkins. This season was a ton of fun to watch, so let's jump right in. Episode 1 begins with some spectacular special effects. They look so vibrant and nice looking. They look great. The whole scene is great. I love the electricity that kills all the people, and it establishes the Russians' plans to open the gate nicely. The first mall scene is really well made. I think it does a good job of showing how everyone's doing after season 2. It shows Mike and Eleven getting together, which feels like a sensible continuation, and how Steve is working at an ice cream shop now, and how everybody out of high school got a job. How Jonathan and Nancy are openly a couple, Lucas and Max are together. I also like the comedy in this episode. Unlike other shows trying to force comedy that doesn't work, this show actually works for me. I really love the idea of Hopper coming to Joyce for parent guidance, and he's stressed about Will spending too much time with Mike. It feels genuine and realistic for Hopper since he only had a kid and never a teenager. I really like seeing Steve strike out with girls at the ice cream shop. It shows that he doesn't have the same flair that he once did in high school. I've barely watched Robin in this episode, but she's already hysterical. I already love how she's sarcastic and she pairs well with Steve. It's obvious that they've been working together for a long time now. I love their chemistry. It feels so genuine. I also really love Hopper's hatred for Mike. It is extremely far out, but it seems so real at the same time. I don't know, I just like the idea of Hopper talking about wanting to kill a high schooler. They just feel close enough to where it doesn't feel weird. There's something I really like about seeing Will interact with Dustin. It's just their interaction feels more special in some weird way. Seeing Billy become more involved with the story is nice, since without the gradual step, he would have probably been forgotten. This whole first episode was great. It was funny, heartwarming, sad, really everything it had to be. This was a great introduction, and I'm a little disappointed that everything being normal for these kids is already done for, since I really liked seeing them do normal things and live a normal life. But alas, we must move forward. Episode 2 begins with a great scene with Billy being attacked and then going to the Upside Down, but the ending just leaves me confused for obvious reasons. I love seeing Dustin and Steve be actual best friends. It's really charming and fun to watch. I also really love seeing Hopper try to get together with Joyce, since I do like the idea of them getting together. I think it's a little weird that Mike and Lucas are being huge douches right now, since Dustin has been gone for a month, and this is the first time in forever that Will has just been fine. I'm a little disappointed since I have been excited to see what the whole original gang is like hanging out, but I guess this is supposed to be them growing out of their phases, which is very disappointing. I really like the scene with Karen and Billy. It's stressful and disturbing, with the scene with him bashing her head in. Dustin and Steve's story is the most interesting so far, and both of them are so fun to watch and are extremely funny. I'm also interested where they're taking this rat plot. It's fascinating and pretty original. I don't really care about the protester subplot, though. It's just not a subject that fascinates me, but maybe it will over the course of this story. I just don't see how this plot revolves around the Upside Down. I also really like seeing Max and Elle actually be friends and bond over something. It's a cute character moment between the two of them. I think it's very realistic for Joyce to immediately resort to studying everything about magnets when she sees something weird about the magnets. It wouldn't make any sense for everybody but her, since she has been through a lot of traumatic experiences. I love the introduction to the science teacher, with him in the garage listening to Weird Al. It feels so much like his character. This is probably the weirdest and most far-out stories. Rats explode and turn into monsters. It's not like I don't like this story. I think it's good. It definitely fits Stranger Things. But one thing that doesn't fit is this montage with Elle and Max. It feels tonally completely off. But I really like this montage. It's really fun. I love the music and the overall feel of the montage. I don't care that it doesn't fit. It's really fun. This season is like a horror movie sometimes, like with Billy. All these scenes, I think, keep the show fresh, since basically everything else is drama and not about the Upside Down. Basically, just the scenes with Billy are really well directed and just well made. Episode 3 begins with more of Ax and Elle, but I'm not complaining. I'm still a big fan of these scenes. They're really charming and entertaining. I really love the scene with Hopper barging into the sleepover. I just thought it was really funny. I really like seeing Elle use her powers for fun. That feels like a natural progression from just using them to help people out. This is showing that she's getting more comfortable with her powers. I think it's weird how mad Hopper gets at Joyce. I mean, they've been friends for forever. I think it's weird that he gets this mad at her. I really like seeing Nancy be just like Murray in many ways. Nancy is like Murray with telling people about this weird stuff that's happening with everybody. I really like seeing stuff like that. The character changes, mostly with Nancy, since Murray is one of my favorite characters. Not just his personality, but the idea of him is great. So seeing another character like him is awesome. I really enjoy seeing Max and Elle join the Billy plot, since I was ready for some of the main characters to start being more involved. Not to mention, the scene with Elle and Heather is actually really scary. Like, really. It's a good jump scare, and the shot with Heather falling into the bathtub is really disturbing. I also really like Hopper and Joyce going back to see Hagen's lab and seeing it all torn apart. I feel like this really is a symbol for how the whole season has changed drastically from the second season, with everybody from high school getting jobs to everybody dating someone to the biggest, the mall taking down all the mom and pop stores. I really like the way the scene with Robin cracking the code is edited, and it's just a really great scene. Although it is a little unbelievable how fast she did it, but still a great scene. Not to mention the scene with the jazzercise coats, which was also really good. One of the most compelling scenes is when Will destroys his fortress, and I don't really have anything to say. It's just a really sad and compelling scene that I think most people take for granted. Nobody talks about this great scene, and that frustrates me. There's a really fantastic fight between a guy and Hopper, and it's really good. I also really like the scene with Billy and Heather. It's very off-putting and well done. It's also a little disturbing. The scene with Heather's parents are really good. It feels like it came straight from a horror movie. Another scene that's really good is with the old lady. It's actually very disturbing and creepy, and I think that's what makes this season great. I also really like the idea of the monster taking people and replacing them with mindless slaves. That's a direction that I think makes sense for a show like this to go to. I'm not a fan of this season's explanation of why the Mind Flayer is back. It's this simple. There's no explanation. It's just we can't take any chances that it died. I'm not a fan of this. This feels really lazily put together, although I do like the scene with Hopper interrogating the mayor. The most uninteresting plot here is with Mike and his gang. It just feels like I've seen it all before. Erica is weirdly not as funny as I remember. She's a little bit more annoying than ever. The one thing I like about this scene is with Mike and his gang when Max secretly hopes that Billy isn't the host for the Mind Flayer. I like that since it actually shows that she cares about her brother and doesn't hate him. I really like the scene in the elevator with Steve and his gang. Really, any scene with them is guaranteed to be good. The scene with Billy getting attacked was actually pretty good. I thought it was really well done, and while I don't like that it's the Mind Flayer coming to possess someone else, I can appreciate everything else that's original about this plot, like the Mind Flayer taking souls and coming back as rat guts. I like those, so I don't think it's fair to see this whole season as unoriginal when it's totally original. I mean, in the sense that it doesn't copy from itself. I'm a big fan of all these Russian fight scenes. They remind me a lot of Die Hard, which is the biggest compliment I can give these scenes. These scenes are really cool with the direction and the choreograph. Even at the end of the fight, it's still a great scene with everything just being great. I've seen a lot of people on the internet absolutely obsess over Alexei. I just don't see what the big deal is. I mean, I guess he's innocent, but I don't see anything to go crazy over. Also, the only stories that I'm interested in right now are Steve and Hopper's. The other story isn't that interesting for me. It feels a little lifeless so far, and it features nothing that really sparks my interest anymore. While Steve's story is great, I like 3 out of the 4 characters there, and it's very entertaining to watch all of them interact with one another. And their story is actually interesting with the Russians and everything. I'm actually really into it. Hopper's story is cool too, especially with them going over to Murray's place, but so far it feels like it isn't going somewhere that'll be interesting. I don't know. The more it goes on, the less riveting it gets. The best scene here is already when Joyce is yelling at Murray, "Need I say more?" I also love seeing Steve actually win a fight. Something about it feels good since all the way back in season 1 he had a fight, and that's basically the tradition for these seasons until he actually wins finally. Now Nancy's story is actually becoming interesting, with her boss coming to the hospital. The whole scene in the hospital is really great. I really like the horror movie qualities, and I also like the scenes in the waiting room. They're pretty charming. The CGI is actually really good in the hospital scene. The idea that Steve and his gang can literally not get away from the Russians is pretty funny. I really like the design of the monster. It's actually pretty original looking for this show, and it looks pretty cool. The effects here actually look great, and the textures are top tier looking. I really like the spider look the creators were going for. It looks awesome. It looks like a Contra boss. So far this season is actually pretty original for a season people would say is always out of ideas. But I thought only some things were unoriginal, but those have been revealed to be something I've never seen before, so I'd say it's original. There's a lot going on here. Dustin and Erica trying to free a drugged Robin and Steve, while Mike and his gang are going to face a giant monster made out of humans. Really, the only part of this that felt really epic was Steve's plot. Everything felt very low-key, which is weird since this is the only hour-long episode, and this is almost the end. Still, this episode is still good. Episode 7 is just epic. Everything was great. Seriously, everything. I don't have much to say since this episode speaks for itself. It's just epic as all hell, and my words don't justify it. Please just watch it for yourselves. I just watched this episode and I have nothing to say. Trust me when I say that this was magnificent. Everything building up to this. I don't want to say anything because I just want you to watch it for yourselves. I'm overwhelmed by how good this was. Please don't miss the season, or better yet, this show, because you need to watch the rest for this to be as amazing as it is.